We are sort of rushing this to air because we're using a new system, Restream, which we have loved so far. And for the first time, we actually scheduled this. So this was an experiment. I see lots of digging that telling us that we're live now. I'm not sure how it works. And I was afraid if we didn't go live exactly at the time we said we would go live, we would lose the whole feed. So we're a little bit rushed here, and you're going to get a true behind the scenes look at what goes on at a recording of Money with Friends. We're doing 2 podcast recordings with our amazing guest co-host, Cameron Huddleston, author of Mom and Dad, We Need to Talk. Mom, journalist, wife, friend, all around amazing person. You've been a member of our community now for 3 months. Now, this is your 4th month doing the show live. I'm also, by the way, getting live weather reports while we're doing this because I forgot to silence my phone. Anyway, Cameron, this is your last recording. You're going to record your last 2 regular episodes. How's it been?
Well, I'm sad that it's coming to an end. Sorry, I got to clear my throat. I tell you, allergies, it's been awful. Like always up. And you can't help. Every time you have to like sniffle or cough, you're like, oh my gosh, do I have the virus?
Oh my God, no. I know.
I'm super prepared.
No, it's true. It's really true.
But this has been a lot of fun, Bobbi. I'm sad that it's ending. And you said now I will be an alum.
You'll be an alum.
But, you know, gosh, if we're in normal conditions, maybe there could be like reunions, like where people.
I think that would be a really cool thing. We could do a Zoom reunion. We could do like a massive recording because now I think this is going to be your season 4. So this is going to be season 5 coming up, and your season is going to be a tough one to beat. So we're sad. We're always sad this time of the season because it's all of our final recordings and we feel like we've finally gotten to a groove with you guys. And anyway, but anyway, and to our audience here that may be joining us. So you are sort of behind the scenes. We're recording 2 audio podcasts while we are doing this. Another cool new thing that we are doing is we believe we are on YouTube. We are on Facebook on various channels, including the Stacking Benjamins page. We're also on my pages. And then we're also on Twitter, which is a new thing. So if you guys are out there on each channel, we'd like to know if it's working. So please say hi from YouTube or Facebook or Twitter. I don't know why Instagram is not an option, but I think that would be good. And we're also working on LinkedIn as something going forward. But it's really cool when you guys let us know that you're watching. Anyway, so we're going to do 2 shows. They're going to be about 15 minutes each. I keep thinking, the show we did that aired Saturday, I don't know if you heard it, was Cameron Diaz's wine. Did you hear that?
No, I didn't hear
it. I keep thinking Cameron.
I didn't even know she had a wine. And, she's the only.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know any other Camerons who are women. Every Cameron I've always met has been, yes, it's a boy's name.
Man, is it?
Yes.
Is it?
It is.
I don't think of that. Hi, Adrian.
Hey, you know what? The chats.
But you're the only Cameron that I know, I think. Watch, I get a note from another Cameron I know. Oh my gosh.
I've met guys. But not women. So
anyway. Something to think about.
And Bobbi,
yes.
If there was a
Bobbi,
Y,
I know.
An I.
Yes.
Totally
it's very true. Very true, very true, very true. All right. So the topics we're going to talk about. Oh, this is another new thing, guys. We are going to be putting the links to our stories, not only on our webpage, which is moneywithfriendspodcast.com, but also we're going to now start putting them on our YouTube page. So everybody, please go to YouTube and search for the Money with Friends channel. We're getting it organized for fall. Please subscribe so we can get to the point where we can monetize, which would help us with the show also. So it definitely matters if you subscribe. And then you will not only get notifications if you want to turn them on when we're recording, but also the links to the articles that we read, because we can't read the whole thing very often, will be right there for you. So we're just working on lots of things to make it more convenient for you, because a lot of you say, where can I read the article? And the webpage is one place, but now YouTube is another place. And by the way, send us suggestions. That's always a good thing to do, and we really appreciate it. All right, let's do these shows. Oh, another thing we're going to do new. We rushed this on so fast. I didn't tell Cameron. We are going to record the advertisements. As you guys know, we're part of Westwood One. We're going to record the advertisements separately so that you guys don't always have to sit through them, but also we shouldn't say it that way. But anyway, so that we record faster and also we can bring you different advertisements when we air the show differently and so on. So for these behind the scenes recordings, just so you know, we're not going to be recording the advertisements live. We're now going to skip over them and insert them later. Okay.
So Bobbi, how is that going to work for our recording? Are you going to pause for a second? What do I need
So
to?
I'm going to say, like when we're ready for our takeaways, I'm going to say, we'll be right back for our takeaways, but first, and then we'll go.
Okay.
That's the plan. Okay. So the first show we're going to be talking about, I don't think I even said the topics. I got distracted. The topics are going to be, the first one is a headline that Cameron chose. It's 4 tropical places you could live for less than $2,000 per month. And then the second one is going to be about how people sometimes, have a hidden agenda when it comes to financial advice, and especially for women. So I think it's important that everyone listen to that. Okay. So let me just check that I've got my backup recording going. It looks like it. I'm still not sure, but you show you're recording yours, correct, Cameron? On
It
Clean
does.
Feed.
Yeah, it
Okay.
shows.
So I think it is, and I think it just uploads them both after the fact separately to the same place, and then I can download them.
Let's just hope.
Okay. Let's just hope. Okay. So this is the show that's going to go out tomorrow, which is Tuesday, September 1st. 4 tropical places you could live well for less than $2,000 per month, with guest co-host author Cameron Huddleston of Mom and Dad, We Need to Talk. It is Tuesday, September 1st. Let's talk money with friends. Welcome to the Money with Friends podcast. I am certified financial planner, Bobbi Rebell, host of the Financial Grown Up podcast, coming to you from my very grown up kitchen in New York City.
And I'm Cameron Huddleston, journalist and author of Mom and Dad, We Need to Talk, coming to you from my home office in Bowling Green, Kentucky.
This is the Money News Show that includes commentary on recent headlines and stories with thought leaders from across the financial landscape, like Mom and Dad, We Need to Talk author Cameron Huddleston. We break those stories down into what matters to you, our friends, and we leave you with a takeaway to make it your own. Cameron, welcome back. We have just 2 more shows with you. I'm so sad the season is wrapping up.
I know, but it's been so much fun. I've loved being able to do this with you, Bobbi.
Is it everything you ever expected?
Oh my gosh, everything
and more.
So much more. Yes. Yeah.
And so much more. Well, we love having you. You've had such amazing advice on so many different topics. The topic we're talking about today, it's actually not technically a retirement story. I sort of have it in my mind as a retirement story, but I think people are going to really, they might be surprised at how affordable some of these places that you can live are. Let's get into it. Let's see which one of our friends is going to bring us into the story. All right, Cameron, you're going to start off.
Okay, so our headline is 4 tropical places you could live well for less than $2,000 per month. It's from CNBC by Jade Scipione. A new report from International Living, a website about living and retiring overseas, figured out some of the best places to live in the world for under $2,000 a month. And 4 of them are tropical destinations. Most Americans don't realize just how expensive the United States is in many regards, says Jennifer Stevens, executive editor of International Living. According to 2018 data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics Consumer Expenditure Survey, the average American household spends $5,102 every month. That means the average American budget is $61,224. But Stevens says most Americans are pleasantly surprised to discover what $30,000 a year can get you internationally. On $30,000 a year or less, all in, you could live in a UNESCO World Heritage town in Mexico, for instance. You could enjoy a slow pace of life, great food, lots of cultural activities, solid healthcare, and weather that suits you year-round, she says. At the moment, due to COVID-19, many places have barred American travelers, but that won't last forever, says Stevens. Here are 4 tropical countries where you can live well for under $2,000 a month, according to International Living. Number 1, Mexico. Do you want me to go down the list and read them all?
Yeah, let's do the list. Yeah. Well, we could just discuss them really quickly. So first it has Mexico, which I think doesn't surprise a lot of people. Then it has Costa Rica, Colombia, and Panama. And it goes into, how the math sort of works for all of these places. Let's just pause. We can get back into that in a minute and talk about the fact that, I mean, I'm curious what you think, Cameron. Do you think that people are more open to living in different places now that we've learned how well so many of us can work remotely?
I would think so. I certainly think that this article highlights for those people who maybe haven't set aside a lot of money in savings for retirement, that there are places outside the borders of the US where you can live really cheaply. I mean, some of these numbers, I mean, Mexico, $1,800 a month, 22,000 a year. I mean, that's a huge bargain. And so I guess too, if you are living in a bigger city in the US and you're thinking about moving away, not just to retire, but like you said, Bobbi, to live someplace else where you can work remotely, sure, maybe consider someplace overseas. Now, the article does point out, though, that a lot of these places aren't letting people in from the US. I think one of them, they were allowing, like, Americans can still travel to Mexico. Maybe it was Costa Rica is letting citizens from New York, New Jersey, Maine, Connecticut, New Hampshire, and Vermont enter Costa Rica. So if they're from your neck of the woods, Bobbi, and the East Coast, they can relocate if they want. But it just highlights how cheap things are outside the US.
Yeah, and it also highlights the fact that we can broaden our thinking. I've talked to people, have asked, why do you live in New York City? Well, it's because my family is here. And that's something, but that doesn't mean your whole family might want to think about relocating somewhere, maybe even for a year. A lot of people that have their children going to school remotely, it doesn't have to be forever, but you may want to go live somewhere that is less expensive. You can still do your job, hopefully getting your same US pay compensation in that place abroad, but also have that experience with your kids. Nothing has to be forever. You could live there for a year or two while this is going on and have a different adventure, that kind of thing. The one thing that I think we need to also talk about, though, is that there are drawbacks. Remember, when you live abroad, you have to remember that you need health insurance. And so you need to make sure that whatever your medical situation is, especially, I mean, you're a specialist in talking to your parents about things like healthcare, like financial issues. These are things that can become more complicated if you do live abroad.
So here's something interesting. There's a couple I have interviewed on more than one occasion, and they retired when they were 40. And this was actually a couple of decades ago. And initially, they had bought the international health insurance, but they found that while they lived primarily in Central America, they lived in a variety of countries, it wasn't even worth it because they were paying more in premiums and they could just pay in cash for the healthcare that they needed. And they've had, both of them have had a variety of surgeries and it was so cheap. They could just pay out of
Wow.
pocket. Yes. And they often found that there were translators there for them. And so there wasn't that language barrier. The care they got was wonderful. They could get in right away to see specialists. And so for those of us who are thinking, well, what sort of healthcare am I going to get if I leave the US? Well, I don't think you necessarily need to worry too much because in a lot of places, even places you might not think of as someplace to have high quality healthcare, I mean, they do throughout Central America. So
That's really, and I had no idea. I, of course, just always am, warning people when they travel abroad on vacation, make sure you get some kind of international health care and some kind of insurance if you need to be airlifted home or something like that. But in fact, we shouldn't assume that these things are more expensive. I think that's another thing that we make a mistake on. We have Adrian here in our live audience as we record this. Do you want to grab this, Cameron? Can you read that?
sure. So Adrian says, I have a friend who's lived in Spain for a few years and he's not planning to come back. The cost of his medicine is one half of what he would have spent in the US. He's very happy with universal health care. And so, that's another thing to consider, especially if you are a retiree and you want to cut costs. Not only will your cost of living be cheaper, but your cost of health care can be cheaper, prescription drugs. And I know too, just from having talked to this couple in the past, if you end up needing some sort of long-term care, it is possible to hire round-the-clock aides and nurses at a fraction of the cost of what you would pay for assisted living or a home health aide in the US.
Wow, I had no idea about that as well. We did get some feedback from our Instagram Money with Friends audience. You guys can be part of it by following us on Instagram at Money Friends Pod. We asked our Instagram friends, would you consider leaving the US for retirement or have you already left? And it's yes or no were the options. Cameron, what do you think our Instagram audience said? Would you consider leaving the US for retirement or have you already left?
I'm I'm thinking the majority might have said no.
The majority said yes,
Really?
67%.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. And I wonder if the answer would have been different before the coronavirus. I think a lot of people are thinking out of the box a little bit. I know that's a cliche, sorry guys. But I think a lot of people are thinking differently with the coronavirus. Even in our family, we're not making any moves now, but the truth is we are more open to moving now that we realize that we have so much more freedom because of technology than we thought we did. And this idea of working from anywhere has so much more social acceptance that we could still maybe work part time, be more in touch with our family and friends if we did live somewhere other than where we are currently. So I think it's changing, but I don't know. So we also had a follow up question. If you could go anywhere in the world to retire, where would it be? And you have some of the answers there.
Okay, so one person said warm and tropical.
So this article was perfect for them.
Someone said Spain, love it there. And healthcare. Someone else said best place with weather and favorable economic conditions 15 to 20 years from now. And then someone else said Greece. You only have to spend 250 euros on property. Oh, 200, maybe 250K euros on a property to get residency.
That's interesting. Yeah. And yeah, warm and tropical, very apropos on this. And as I mentioned, we did have those 4 suggestions in the article, which were Mexico, Costa Rica, Colombia, and Panama. I want everyone to go to our YouTube channel, which is just search for Money with Friends on YouTube. You'll get a link to the article and you can read the details of why those are so desirable according to this piece. And we also, by the way, asked our audience, what financial concerns do you have about retiring outside the US? And as we mentioned earlier, I just want to acknowledge we did have Karen here. She did say medical care costs, and that's why I brought it up. So I just want to say thank you, Karen, for that input into the show, and thanks for contributing to our online polling at Money Friends Pod. Would you, Cameron? What do you think about this? Would you retire or just live abroad for a year? We haven't asked you.
I think it would be fun. Like I would, when I was reading this article, I was thinking, you know what? My husband and I should do that. Like we should go live overseas for a while. And maybe, like you said, Bobbi, not for the rest of our lives, but maybe at least for a few years. And, I know people often say, well, I don't want to leave my kids. I don't want to leave the grandkids. But if maybe you had kids later in life and you're going to retire at 65 and your kids are just starting out at that point, they might not even have grandkids yet. So you go and live overseas before the grandkids come along and then move back if you want to.
Well, it can also be a good place for the grandkids to visit you. And also the other thing that has held me back, and I've seen people do it successfully, and it gives me right now, David Baca's doing it. He's got 2 kids. He's there with his wife and 2 kids. They're living in Italy and they're having a great time and the kids are getting an education. I mean, so what if you a lot of our kids are kind of missing this year of school anyway. I mean, my son's doing remote learning for 7th grade. So the idea of taking a year and being enrolled in a school in a different country is maybe a great idea. Maybe it's not so far-fetched to do that for 1 year. And then you can, you worry about them missing their friends and these, landmark moments, these rituals and different milestones in life, but they'll have different ones if they're abroad.
I think so. I think that your kids are definitely they might be reluctant at first, but after they've spent a year someplace else, like someplace maybe really cool or tropical, they will certainly remember that experience. So I don't know. I'm open to it.
I'm a lot more open to it than I used to be. We don't have any immediate plans, but I think that especially seeing someone and I mentioned David Bach doing it so successfully and having such a great time, and the kids are having a great time. And you know what? They're in school as much as our kids are in school, and their life learning experiences are incredible. I think we're all much more open to it than maybe we used to be. It doesn't seem as far-fetched. We are going to be back with our takeaways in just a moment, but first, Cameron, what is your takeaway?
So, if you haven't saved much for retirement, that doesn't mean you'll have to work forever. There are plenty of places beyond US borders where you can live well on Social Security benefits alone. And I also would add that if you're thinking about relocating because you can work remotely, hey, why not consider someplace overseas?
I love that. And I think that we're all becoming much more open minded about this. It's, you can rent out your home for, the time that you're gone. Or honestly, if it's such a low cost, maybe you can just afford to do it as an addition, maybe have a house sitter or something like that. I think it's a lot more accessible for so many of us now that we see how much more manageable it is with the technology and how much more affordable it may be because of the technology. So, my takeaway is really just that you never know. Some of us had very set ideas about our life, and this coronavirus has us breaking out of those shells. Money absolutely does not have to hold you back if you get creative. I've got a few years before retirement, but maybe this is something you can do pre-retirement. Maybe we don't have to be stuck in that concept that we have to quote wait until a certain phase of our life to do things. Maybe we can do things when we want to do things and not be restricted by conventional thinking or traditional thinking. And in this hopefully soon to be over post coronavirus phase, we think about things a little differently and have a little more fun in life. How about that?
I agree. Totally.
Before we wrap up, Cameron, where can people find out more about you and all your projects?
You can find out more at CameronHuddleston.com. You can also follow me on Instagram, Cameron K. Huddleston. I'm on Twitter. It is CH Lebedinsky. So I'm on social media frequently, and I've got a lot of information on my website too.
Your social media posts are so good. You've really upped your game in the last year or so. So I'm a big fan. I'm always reading her stuff, and so much to be gained by that. You can also, by the way, learn about Cameron on our website, moneywithfriendspodcast.com, along with all of our season 4 cast members and our previous seasons. And of course, you can read the link. You can get the links to the articles of the shows get the links to the articles we talk about on our website. But this is new. The links are now going to be on our YouTube page. So please, everybody go to YouTube, subscribe. And even if you are listening to the audio version of this podcast, you can get the links to the articles we talk about on our YouTube page. Go to YouTube, search for Money with Friends, and you'll be all set, good to go, and be able to follow up and make your own opinions about those articles. So Cameron, thank you so much. You're going to be back tomorrow for your final show of the season. We're going to be talking about the hidden agenda of some financial advisors.
Can't wait to talk about that one.
All right. We'll see everybody back tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.
Okay. So let's move on to our next show.
Okie doke.
And if anyone is there, we haven't gotten any hellos from our YouTube channel. So if anyone's there from YouTube, please say hello. Also from Twitter. All right. This is the show for Wednesday, September 2nd. Okay. The hidden agenda in too much financial advice, why it is especially detrimental to women. We'll talk about it with Cameron Huddleston, author of Mom and Dad, We Need to Talk. Let's talk money with our friends. Welcome to the Money with Friends podcast. I am certified financial planner, Bobbi Rebell, host of the Financial Grown Up podcast, coming to you from my very grown up kitchen in New York City.
And I'm Cameron Huddleston, author of Mom and Dad, We Need to Talk, coming to you from Bowling Green, Kentucky.
This is the Money News Show that includes commentary on recent headlines and stories with thought leaders from across the financial landscape. Like my friend Cameron, we break those stories down into what matters to you, our friends, and we leave you with a takeaway to make it your own. Cameron, this show, yes. I'm so sad. This is your final quote regular appearance on Money with Friends as a season 4 cast member. Thank you so much for being here and for being part of our community.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been so much fun. I'm sad to go.
Well, we're sad to see you go. What's your advice for next season's group?
Oh, goodness. My advice is to enjoy it while you have the chance, because this is a really cool opportunity to be on Money with Friends. I'm honored. So, yeah.
Well, that's great advice. We're going to miss you so much, but we'll definitely have you back on our alumni weeks. Speaking of advice, the story we're going to be talking about is about some advice that may have a hidden agenda. Let's see which one of our friends is going to bring us into this story. All right, Cameron, why don't you start reading? This, by the way, is a piece by Real Simple's Millie section by Alyssa Wolfson. Go for it, Cameron.
So the headline is "This is the Hidden Agenda and Too Much Money Advice, and it's detrimental to women." Marie Buharan, a 32-year-old Boston-based hiring manager in the medical device industry, has felt firsthand how financial advisors and other financial industry professionals may discriminate against women. My husband and I work full-time as director-level professionals, and between the two of us, I primarily manage the finances in the home. I keep him aware of any conversations or happenings regarding our finances by CCing him on emails, and I've noticed a recurring theme. A response from the financial expert is directed to my husband rather than myself, says Buharan. This has happened in regards to home loans, taxes, bank accounts, and credit cards, and I have not seen the same thing happen to my husband. It's incredibly frustrating. She's far from the only woman to feel she's been treated unfairly by a financial advisor because of her gender. Indeed, a survey of more than 4,000 investors released Wednesday by Merrill Lynch Wealth Management reveals that nearly 1 in 10 women investors reported they had a negative experience with an advisor based on a gender stereotype, compared to just 3% of men. And using eye tracking analysis, the report revealed that when a female and a male are meeting with an advisor, the advisor made eye contact with the man more than 60% of the time. One possible reason, both men and women advisors more often assumed that, at least for heterosexual couples, the man was the financial decision maker, the report revealed. And other research finds that many people still think men are the main financial providers in the household, despite the fact that 1/3 of women are now the primary breadwinners. So they may be treating them with more respect. And no matter what a woman's marital status or sexual orientation is, there are plenty of stereotypes about men being better with money than women, despite research that women tend to be better investors than men. And men and women advisors assume that women in general were more risk averse, the Merrill report revealed.
Whatever the reasons, one thing is clear. The time for wealth management to catch up to and fully address the financial experiences of women is overdue, says Andy Sieg, sorry, Andy, if I'm mispronouncing your name, head of Merrill Lynch Wealth Management, which is now offering diversity and inclusion training to its advisors. We asked experts how women can combat sexist treatment by financial advisors. And among the suggestions, ask questions before you hire an advisor, come in armed with knowledge, and don't be afraid to walk away. And if we have time, we'll circle back and give you more details of those. But I want to first get your 2 cents on this, Cameron.
I feel fortunate that I haven't, excuse me, I don't feel like I've been in this situation myself where the financial representative that we've spoken with has deferred to my husband. In fact, I remember when we were getting a home equity line of credit a couple of years ago, it was a woman who was meeting with us. And I know the article pointed out that both women and men are, guilty of showing bias toward the man. But the woman actually was, she was really impressed with my high credit score. And so I felt like she kept deferring to me actually during the conversation, which was nice. But I do want to point out something that the article points out, and it says, come in armed with knowledge. I think it's so important for women to, A, educate themselves about personal finance, and B, not be afraid to speak up. I mean, if jump in. I mean, I have no problems jumping in and taking over, which is probably a fault of mine. I'm more likely to maybe even cut off my husband and interrupt him, which I shouldn't do. I know it's a bad habit. But don't just sit back and let all the questions and comments be directed to your significant other. Pipe up and let that financial advisor, that, salesperson, whomever, know that you are playing a big part of this decision and a part of your family's finances.
I think that's excellent advice. And it's also interesting, though, that you're the person that you were meeting with was a woman. And I think that speaks to the idea that it's important to have diversity in both gender and, of course, in terms of other things, race and sexual orientation in all of these organizations, because the women did not make those assumptions. And I'm not saying in no way would a man necessarily make those assumptions. We should not stereotype in either direction. But by having those diverse representations in a business, it can only help.
Certainly. And, I know certainly a lot of businesses are making an effort, but I will tell you, as a personal finance journalist who's been interviewing financial planners for nearly 2 decades, there are a lot more men out there
Yes.
in the wealth management industry. I have to make a concerted effort to track down women financial advisors to interview for my articles, and advisors, people of color, so that I can get fair representation in my articles. But it is dominated by men.
I think it's interesting that you say that because I had the same experience when I was doing more full time journalism, that I would have to make a really big effort. I would get a list of experts that covered, for example, a certain stock, and there would be maybe two women on the list, and I would call them first. And very often, and this again is a generalization, there are exceptions, of course, but very often those women were so buried in work and not prioritizing publicizing how great they were and being available for the media. They were buried in their work. They would decline or not get back to me for a day or two. And in almost every case, the men would get back to me faster and would be willing to put their work aside or put it on somebody else, delegate it to take the spotlight, to grab the spotlight for themselves and to do the interview, because it was a priority for them to promote themselves. So the women and minorities that are in these positions, I know we're a little off topic. I hope that they will prioritize promoting what they're doing so that people do see that representation when a journalist does call you. But that said, I think it is interesting that had it been a man, we just don't know. And it is 60%. And while that is not as good as 50-50, it's not as outrageous as I think it might have been years ago. Years ago, it might have been 90%. We're looking at the man more. 60% is probably a big improvement, and it shows that I think we are making a lot of progress. We did put this question out to our Instagram audience. We phrased it a little bit differently, but we said, have you ever felt that there was a hidden agenda in the financial advice you have received? Just to see that. I didn't want to put the gender lens on it. I wanted to just see what people said. So what do you think was the answer? Again, the question was, have you ever felt there was a hidden agenda in the financial advice you have received? Yes or no?
I would say the majority would say yes.
Correct. 76% said yes. And then we also asked them to tell us about it. And just as an example, we had Dina saying free financial planner from fiance's work selling whole life. And whole life can be very controversial. It can be the correct thing for some people, but because there's a big investment component in whole life beyond the basic insurance, it can be more costly. Any thoughts on that?
That's exactly what I was thinking, that if people thought there was a hidden agenda, that hidden agenda would likely be a sales pitch. I think
Mm-hmm.
people might be reluctant to even meet with a financial planner or a wealth manager because they might be assuming that this person is trying to sell them something. And I think it's very important to point out that there are different types of financial advisors. If you are working with a fee-only financial planner, who is a fiduciary, they need to work in your best interest. And so their job is not to tell you something. If someone is commission based, then yes, that person has a more vested interest in making money by selling something for which he or she can get a commission. So, it's important to look for the right financial planner or advisor for your needs. And as that article points out too, if this financial planner isn't working for you, then it's okay to walk away. Find someone else.
Absolutely. And to me, the red flag in this comment from Dina in our Instagram is free. Nothing is free, my friends, as our audience knows. When it's free, something else is going on. They're going to make money somewhere else. And look, everyone has to earn a living. There's nothing wrong with earning a living. They just have to make sure to disclose to you how they are making that living. So if you're not paying a fee, you should ask them, how are you being paid? And frankly, even if you are paying a fee, there might be additional ways that they are getting paid. So always ask, what are all the ways that you are getting paid to work with me, so that you know, and you might choose to work with them. You may not care. You may prefer that your fees be bundled in as a commission to them and you don't have the out of pocket hit. Some people prefer that, right, Cameron?
Exactly. And like I said, it's what you prefer and finding the right person for you, and everyone's going to be different.
Yeah. And we have some other comments here talking about the fact that, when it's clear that they just want to make money off of you, you walk away. And I think that's also important to remember, that you can walk away. If something doesn't feel good, I don't know. Have you ever had that experience where something just doesn't seem right with someone giving you, quote, financial advice?
Yes. Yes, it does. And I would certainly say if someone is not willing to take the time to explain things to you, at least explain things to you in a language that you can understand as opposed to financial jargon that you haven't been educated in, if you ask them to explain it better and if they can't, walk away too. Maybe it's because they don't want to take the time to explain it to you, or maybe they themselves don't really understand what they're saying or what they're trying to sell.
I love that point that you just made because we assume if someone calls themselves a financial advisor, they really understand everything. But very often they could just be a salesperson. They've been told to sell something and they may understand it at the most basic level. But when you ask a deeper question, they may get stumped.
And I haven't seen this with financial planners, but many, many years ago when I was a reporter with Dow Jones Newswires and I was having to call traders, bond traders, I remember a bond trader once saying something to me and I said, "Well, what does that mean?" And he said, "Well, I don't know, but it sounds good. So you should use the quote." And so it
Oh
just
my
goes
God.
to show-
Really?
Yes, really. Yes, really.
That's so
Yes.
bad. That's so bad.
Yes, really. So, I was always taught, as a journalist to, make sure if you don't understand something, don't be afraid to ask the question. And so when I did, and the guy I was trying to quote couldn't explain it either,
Yeah, that's
I knew
never
I knew
good.
he was full of it. I knew it.
That's never good. And you say something, you say financial planners. I mean, the truth is, so I'm a CFP, certified financial planner. That's a very specific thing. And people that are certified financial planners have ethical standards they have to abide by. We have continuing education. We've taken big tests. We've done training. Anyone, I believe, can just say, yeah, I'm a financial advisor. I don't know that that really carries any official weight. So ask them, what is your qualifications? Because there are other qualifications besides CFP. I don't want to say those are not also valid, but make sure they have some sort of qualification and then look them up. You can look them up in the database and make sure that they don't have any ethical violations and that they really are who they say they are and that they are, all things are on track and good. They're in good standing with the group. Maybe you can find out a little bit about them. Do your research. Another thing in this article that they say is that you should do a phone consultation maybe before you even go in. Now, we're at a time where you wouldn't even go in anyway. You're probably on a Zoom call. But in general, before you commit to working with somebody, don't be afraid to screen them and to ask them for references and really know who you're getting into business with, because this is someone that is going to be handling your money. And there's a lot of things that can go wrong. You have to really trust this person. And so at least do everything you can to vet them in advance.
Yes, and I would just add that if you are married, have a significant other, and you are planning on working with an advisor, the two of you need to agree beforehand. You need to play a role. Both of you need to play a role in this decision. And both of you need to play a role in choosing and finding the right person for you. You just don't say, spouse comes home one day and says, "Hey, my buddy at the golf club said, he's got a great financial advisor. We should go with him." Well, ask some questions. It's okay to
Yes.
ask questions of your spouse too.
Absolutely. And when you're in this meeting, if you feel they're ignoring your spouse, you can speak up and say, we make our decisions jointly. So don't forget. Anyway, this is a really good new thing we are doing. We are putting the links to these articles so you can read them in full because we don't have time to read them completely in our show. If you go to our YouTube, just go to YouTube and search for Money with Friends. We are going to now have, this is a new thing. We're going to have links to the articles that we have been speaking about right on our YouTube channel, right below where the show is. So just look for the show, look below, you can see it, and then you can read the whole piece for yourself and you can still comment on it on our YouTube page. So go to Money with Friends on YouTube, please subscribe, and you can read the entire article. You can also, by the way, see the articles on our webpage, moneywithfriendspodcast.com. We are going to get to our takeaways in just a moment, but first, okay, Cameron, what is your takeaway here?
So I agree 100% with this article. I think it is time for the wealth management industry to catch up and give women equal treatment. And women, if you are working with a financial advisor who isn't giving you the respect you deserve, it's time to move on.
Absolutely. Money talks and money can walk. I love that. And I also want to send a message to the men or the spouses, however your couple is. Speak up for your other half, for your better half. Make sure they are included and make sure that they are also engaged, because in order for the financial advisor to be addressing both of you, you both have to have done your homework. So if you have a spouse that is not that interested in your personal finances, don't push them a little bit. Tell them, we're going to have this meeting. I want you to come and I expect that you participate, because as you've pointed out so many times, Cameron, you never know when you're going to suddenly be the one in charge, even though you would prefer to have your spouse, your partner in charge. That's not always a choice. So it's important that we be proactive ourselves, and we also push our loved ones to also understand what's going on. Cameron, what's going on right now is this has been your last show with us as a regular cast member for our season. We've loved having you.
I have loved being on the show, and I will tell you, I'm glad that we're recording it this week instead of last Monday, because that's when my kids went back to school and they started virtual school. And so, yeah, that was a challenging week. And so now we know what we're doing a little bit more, and hopefully my son has managed to get on to his class that's happening right now by himself. But it's a good thing that we're recording it this week instead of last week.
Well, what's your advice for parents and for people working from home this fall with all of this? It's not even new because we've been doing this since March as we settle in. How do people keep up, especially, financially, not letting those things slip through the cracks?
It's hard. I think it's so important to recognize that you can't give 100% to everything, and you have to accept that. Because if you are upset because you're not giving 100% to your job and your kids and to whomever else needs your attention, it's just going to eat you alive. So you have to say, you know what? I'm doing the best I can right now. Create a schedule for yourself, your family, and have those to-do lists. But don't overwhelm yourself. Don't take on too much, which is what I did last week.
Oh no.
Oh yeah. Took on too many writing assignments, and with the kids starting school. And so it was overwhelming, and I learned my lesson. I have to learn how to say no a little bit better. So don't be afraid to say no.
We're glad you said yes to us, though. This has been so wonderful.
Yes,
Where can people stay in touch with you and be in touch with you and keep on top of all of your projects?
So you can follow me on Instagram at Cameron K. Huddleston, and you can find me on my website, CameronHuddleston.com.
We're going to miss you so much. You can also learn about Cameron on our website, which is moneywithfriends.com. And of course, follow her in all the places. Follow us on Instagram, especially at Money Friends Pod. That's also our handle on Twitter at Money Friends Pod, where you can be part of all of our polls and quizzes and get a shout out in the show. And of course, on YouTube, just go to YouTube, search for Money with Friends, where we not only record these shows, but also we will now have the links to the articles that we talk about. And so you can follow up and read the articles and stay on top of things. And thank you so much, Cameron, for joining us.
Of course. I had fun.
All right. We'll see everybody tomorrow for tomorrow's show. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
All right. That was awesome. Thanks, everyone. Joe is recording, I think, on Wednesday, and I am going to be back Wednesday at 7 a.m. with Joe for an early morning recording. So join us then.